Nice. That's like, it's good to be home, huh? Yeah, it's really kind of. How are you doing? Really good. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. I didn't really know. I know, and then I got my to get to write down people. No, I know. Yeah. Hello there, how are you? Good. You think that we could do this? I think you did. Oh, it's a challenge. It's been with us for a year. He's the one that with us. He's still in the reasons. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry. You like the song like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. How are you? You're at your house? But wait a minute. Well, I don't know. Wait, Right downstairs. Are you there? Oh, thank you. I love idea. Buddy. I love all the mingling, but we're going to get started so that we can make sure to give Marcus as much time as possible today. quick we're gonna do some quick announcements, and then I'm gonna let Colt come in and chat with us for just a minute about Henry Walker Homes. Then we're gonna have you grab your lunch, bring it back here, and we're gonna lunch and learn to make sure that we're getting market for such as possible to do the market update. So we have a lot of birthdays in August, you guys. Look at all those beautiful August babies. Sherry's in the room. Anyone else? Jessica's in the room. Guys, you're already celebrating and will continue celebrating throughout the entire month. Also, if your birthday's at the end of August, you get to actually celebrate into September. That's the rule. So there's that. August work anniversaries. Happy anniversary. We've had 1 year officially of Tim Hewlett, Kelly Key, 2 years of Christina, 5 years of Chris Bradford. Wow. Oh,
Closing up, closing up.
we want to celebrate. You don't got yourself. The first year was just like, maybe we're going to keep it. And then 21 years with Man King. That's pretty amazing. We want to welcome Bradley, Brett, and Lexi to the office this month. Welcome. If you see new people around, here's what I'm going to tell you. Do you remember when you were a new agent? It was freaking scary as hell to walk into an office and be like, no, no. So when you see somebody that you haven't met before, just go and introduce yourself. It's a wild idea. It's called having friends and networking in the industry. Try it, you'll like it. Today we have from 1:30 to 2:30 our tech bar with the one and only Bradley Green. Bradley, what are you shaping up for us today?
Whatever you want.
Whatever's on the menu, your pick. Pick your poison. Tomorrow at 9:30 is the Art of Conversations with Allison and Tim. Tomorrow at 6:30 is our Raptors game. Hopefully you already RSVP'd. I think we're sold out. If not, talk to Vinci, but I think we're sold out. And then Thursday at 9:30 is the Art of Conversation. It's actually not with Allison and Tim. I'm going to be filling in on Thursday. And then Thursday at 11 to 11:45 is turning your website into a value machine with Brett. That's we already talked about. This is the upcoming, as you guys know, there's an AI training series that we're doing here at KW with Shoni Ivins. Register for this here. It is August 22nd from 11 to 12:15. One thing I get asked a lot is if we have a recording we can share on this. We do not get recordings after, but if you register for the class, even if you don't show up, you will get an email with the resources. So if you want the resources, sign up. Did everybody get a chance to scan? Ellie's still working on it, sharing the back. All of these can also be found in our email that Bradley sends out each week, our newsletter. And save the date for August 27th. We've got Bites and Insights coming back hot with contract negotiations, heavy on the buy side. One of the feedback that we're getting is as we're shifting a little bit more into a buyer's market, that there's a lot of people who have never really had to negotiate strongly on behalf of a buyer because we've been in such a different market. So that's what we're going to focus on for Bites and Insights. If you want to come and learn a little bit about UAR and what that's all about, the annual convention is the 25th. You will get all of your CE. There's always an awesome legal panel. It's in Logan, so you could literally drive home every day if you want to. It's going to be wild because guys, Logan, ooh, party town. But I will tell you, this is always top-notch education, top-notch entertaining, and there's 2 keynote speakers, which are both going to be fantastic. The sales for this end, I'm pretty sure, on Friday. So if you want to go, make sure you sign up. Stat. I know the room blocks are closing too. When you make your calls, make sure you're doing it in a TCPA friendly and compliant way. And then I want to introduce Colt Johnson. Many of you may know him. He's with Henry Walker Homes, and he was a KW agent for a long time before he said new construction's his jam. So, Colt, come on down.
To be fair, I'm still Henry Walker at heart. So
You can
no, yeah,
KW
AW at heart, Henry Walker.
just on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, first of all, agents here, right? One of my goals when I went to Henry Walker is to make things easier for you as agents. The challenge that I always faced in your shoes was trying to figure out what the heck these builders are building, where they're building it, all that fun stuff. And then you have a client who's like, "Well, what about new construction?" Right? And then you have to go online, you have to try to find all these things. So one thing you can find at Henry Walker is myself, right? And if you just tell me what they're looking for, I'll tell you whether we have it or we don't, right off the bat, right? I want to make it as easy as possible. Another thing that we've done with our website is we've created kind of like a menu bar, right? So you can go through and select like, oh, my client's looking for X amount of square footage. They want this many bedrooms, this many bathrooms. And when you do that, it's going to filter out every build option that we have and give you the ones that actually fit that criteria, which is kind of cool. So I feel like that makes it a little easier. The other thing you can do is shoot me a text and say, this is what my buyer's looking for. I have a few people, agents, who do that every time they get a buyer. And they're like, hey, this is what they're looking for. Do you have something? And I tell them yes or no, and then I send them the information. Right? So that's my goal. I want to make it easier. I want to be kind of that stop for you at least before you start hitting every other house out there and trying to figure things out. The other thing, KW, I love because you guys get trained really well on how to handle your clients and how to help your clients. And I'm going to tell you my story of really good experience that I had with an agent and a really not so great experience I had with an agent. The good experience was the agent called me. We had a quick, like 5-minute conversation about exactly what the client was looking for. And we found what they were looking for within what we had. And they went into contract. It was about a 2-week thing. Like we were in, done, build option. They're building their home now. It was really easy, really fast because they knew their client really well. The bad experience I had was the other day where the agent set the appointment with me, showed up 3 hours late to the appointment and missed my son's soccer game, which was like his championship game, which sucked. And then buyer walked in, measured the garage, and walked out and said it doesn't work. And I was so upset with this agent because had I known that was the only thing they needed to know, we could have eliminated that stop time altogether and saved them the time and saved myself the time and wouldn't have missed the soccer game, right? And I'm sure you guys understand that. Like as agents, you're kind of at the will and the mercy of the client and their time. Sometimes you have to sacrifice things, right? But I just want you guys to have a good experience. I want you to enjoy the process. Your clients are pretty close, right? Is it yours?
No.
Oh, no, it's
Jason.
Jason. Okay, sorry. It's beer. We're all. That's right. This is much better. Up and down, right? So anyways, I have 2 things here for you. One is my contact information. I'm going to pass this around. And then I just want you to scan it, save. This is the contact information. This is actually the link to the menu bar, essentially, for the homes that we have. And so if you have those 2 things in your pocket, right, when you're thinking of any of your clients, look at this as an option. Shoot me a text, whatever you want to do, whatever's easier for you. Let me know. And if you have ideas of how we can make it easier, don't be afraid to call me or text. We definitely are. Yes. What types of incentives we're doing? So on anything that is within 90 days of completion for construction, so they'll have 3.99 interest rate on those, but that's a 3-2-1 buy down, right? That's what that is. Obviously, if the rate's slightly lower, it's gonna go lower. You guys know how that works for the most part. The other thing is if it's like a new build that you're gonna look at, like a lot and then all that fun stuff, we're doing $25,000 towards whatever they want to apply that to. I've even had someone come and ask if we'd apply it to personal debt. And our lender's working on something for that. Try to help with that. So I think that's a really cool thing that we're doing as well. Is that fair? Okay. Awesome. So I am at Cobble Creek, which is in West Haven. Right now we only have 3 lots. I think we're going under contract on one of those. So there's only 2 lots left there. So we're doing a countdown. There's an event this Saturday there. you wanted to come look at what we have available, that's fantastic, from 12 to 3. And I can share any information on that. Shoot me a text. And then the other thing, I'm actually going to be moved from there once those are sold out to Salt Lake. We have townhomes going in Mill Creek right now, and we have townhomes in Holiday. Two very different price points. You know, Holiday is very luxurious, right? And then you have the Mill Creek, which is kind of that starter option. So,
But you can sell homes anywhere Henry Walker, right?
yeah.
Okay, so you're just our one go-to contact. You don't have to contact a bunch of different.
Right. Thank you, Rusty. Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions? Thoughts?
Communities in Davis County, Weaver County, other than West Haven.
Yes, so we have Kaysville, we have Farmington, North Ogden. Have you guys been to the parade this year? Davis County Parade? So we were in the parade. Our home is beautiful up there. One of the biggest comments we kept getting was, this home actually makes sense, and it's beautiful, and I can see myself actually living here. A lot of people said, oh, it's actually within the price range we can afford. And so that was really cool to hear, right? Our design specialist was phenomenal. She put that thing together so well. So if you want to do headshots, if you wanted to do like any marketing videos for your own pages and things like that, please come use our spaces. I've sent that invitation 100 times out to agents everywhere. It's amazing how many people don't capitalize on it. You can create some pretty fantastic marketing, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you want to do, whatever your medicine is. Feel like you can do it with that for you.
Thank you.
What's the lowest price home and what's the most expensive one?
That's a great question. So lowest price right now, we have about I want to say 450 right now with the townhome. That's in St. George. And then your step ups are like 479. That's in Mill Creek. And then in Flint, you have like 480 to 490 on those townhomes. But that's in Kaysville, right? And so, and then the most expensive, I mean, you're looking anywhere between, depends on what somebody builds. But right now, currently on the market, most expensive 1.29, and that's great home.
Is that one listed right now?
It's not on the market officially, but it will be soon.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
Cole.
Probably.
Lunch, come back in here, we'll get started.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or, yeah. There.
No, the one that you need is.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to get holding.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, right. Minor.
Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you put this together? I'm not, I'm not.
Do I need more?
Oh, feeling amazing.
In your opinion, available. There we go.
If you run it, you need it back. Been a good summer.
Getting ready for the Christmas trust day, third grade, now in September. And I really, I'm doing that. Yeah, it was, needed. A little rain.
All right, you guys good to get started? I've got lunch. It's the strategy. Give everyone lunch at the beginning. When you have 183 slides of numbers to go through,
See who can say wait.
so I can just say what I want. No one can argue. Which was the strategy, but we're shifting strategies now. Because 183 slides straight of nerdy statistics, it's cool, but really not that fun. Unless you love numbers. So how many of you were David Letterman fans versus Jay Leno? Jay Leno fans? I feel like people were either in one camp or the other, right? It was interesting when I was younger. I really loved David Letterman. I thought he was hilarious. One of my favorite things that he did with a segment was his top 10, whatever. He had some random thing every time, right? And most of them probably were made up statistics, but they were funny. So instead of going through 183 slides of numbers and having everyone walk out of here looking like zombies, what I decided to do was we're going to go over the top 10 market insights and what to do about them. Because it doesn't just do us any good to talk about the statistics. It's what are we actually doing about them in the marketplace right now? How are we having the conversations with our customers? And so I want to play a little bit of game with you. So ultimately what I did is I sat down, I wrote down what I think are the top 10 most important insights that you need to know about and you need to know how to have conversations about. Then I went back through all this data and I started putting them in buckets. And so I took them and put them in these buckets to support the idea behind these 10 ideas. And so what I want to do with you is have a conversation, even though your mouths are full, I want to turn it into a little bit of a conversation today. I'm going to ask you some questions. And generally speaking, when someone asks you a question, unless you're a teenage kid and really awkward, what do? Your answer, right? There you go. Here's on it. Here's on it. So I want to play a little bit with you. I think by us talking about it together, It's going to help spark some ideas and some of the conversations you should be having. It's one thing to completely ignore the market. Well, it's one thing to completely ignore the market. And I think the next level of agent trusts the news for information. The next level of agents comes to classes like this and says, I need to go actually learn what's going on and understand it, which is good, but to go from good to great, then you need to say, all right, what did I learn from this? And what am I going to go do with it? So that's what I want to go through with this conversation with you is, do I agree with this insight? And if you disagree with me, let's talk about it. And then it's, do I know how to talk about this? And how would I now convert this to action? And some of the action isn't like you go to refinance your house and things like that, but more of the action would be, I have a database of people that are counting on me today to better understand the market. How do I take this knowledge and tell a story? Is it one-on-one phone calls? Is it an email blast? Is it a social media reel? Whatever that is, I want you to think through what is the action. Ready to get into this?
Do it.
Number one. Oh, that was so anticlimactic. Now I'll do the journal. The market has stabilized, not collapsed. Do you agree or disagree? Agree. So let's look at this a little bit. If I ask your clients, do they think the market is collapsing or stabilizing? Okay. How many of you think the general public thinks our market is collapsing right now? How many of you think that the general public thinks our market is stabilizing right now? So why do we think differently than the general public?
We know.
Because we know. Who said that? Bobby, I love that. I'm gonna start using that at home. It's because I know what's going on. What in your mind would define a stable market? If you had to give like 2 or 3 bullet points of the market is stable because of this, what would it be?
Still buying and selling.
Okay, there's still buyer and seller movement. There's transactions happening. I think that's an important one. What else?
I'd say prices are.
Okay, there's some predictability, like we can predict some things are happening. Prices are stabilizing. Okay, so we start looking at these things to say, all right, these to me are saying a stable market. Another one that I thought of with this is, we'll talk a little bit about today, is months of supply of inventory, right? How quickly are prices moving? How quickly are interest rates moving? The slower things are moving suggests stability, okay? But why do people think it's collapsing if all these indicators suggest stabilization?
But the news is telling them, taking the news, the worst of the worst. Yeah.
It doesn't make an interesting news article to say, and the market is stable, right? That doesn't sell. Yeah.
Homes aren't selling. I see all these homes on my block for sale.
Okay. This is a big one because it feels different. How many times does something feel different and we automatically think it's wrong because it's different? The market feels different than it did over the last decade. It doesn't necessarily make it wrong, even though there were some fun things about the market over the last decade. It doesn't make it wrong. In fact, there needed to be some things that changed in our economy, and real estate industry is a byproduct of some of those changes that have to happen for the stability of our country. So let's give some statistics behind this or some data to support this. There we go. So a recession does not mean falling prices. So I think this is part of where the general public automatically thinks we talk about recession, we talk about the recession's coming, we talk about a soft landing, we talk about these things, and they automatically equate this to recession means prices are falling. Okay, if you look historically at the last 6 recessions, 1980, 81, 91, 2001, 2008, 2020, these are all the recessions that have happened in my lifetime, because anything before my life really doesn't matter. In 1980, a recession happened. Prices went up 6.1%. 1981, home prices went up 3.5% in a recession. Those are hard recessions too. 1991 was the next recession. This was one of the 6 that had a negative price connotation across the country, but only negative 1.9%. 2001 recession went up 6.6. 2008 recession went down 19.7%. And 2020 went up 6%. Which recession are we most getting compared to today? Okay, by the public, we're getting compared to 2008. If you line up all the things that created the recession of 2008, how much in alignment are we today with that recession? Really, there's not a lot common. I mean, there's houses involved, There's real estate industry involved, but we're in a completely different economic landscape than 2008, okay?
I think
Uh,
just prices went up before 2008. Now everyone thinks it's gonna come. The prices went up.
And I think that is where there is some commonality, right? We had a huge price push for this market right now too, that we're kind of correcting from. We did that in 2008. The difference was one was driven by actual buyer demand and one was driven by speculation. Okay,
Mortgage fraud.
what's that?
Mortgage fraud.
Mortgage fraud. No, because there was buyer speculation, right? Okay, so one thing we can take away from this is just because people are talking about recession does not mean prices are falling, or doesn't mean tomorrow prices are going to be cheaper. We're getting a lot of buyers that are kind of equating that of like, I'm just going to wait for prices to come down. We're going to talk some data around that today. Prices expected to rise more slowly over the next 5 years. So Fannie Mae interviewed 100 of the leading housing market experts. So this doesn't go into like one person and ask them the question. They went to 100 experts and said, what do you actually believe is going to happen with home prices, knowing everything that's going on in the market? They took the averages of those, and these are the averages of those 100 experts. 2025 is a 2.9% appreciation, 2026, 2.7, 3.38, 3.74, 3.68. Now, if you look at this, does that feel like it was over the last 5-6 years? No, we were having double-digit appreciation, which was great for some people, horrible for some people, but is that a healthy market? Is that when we've used the word stable a minute ago, is that a stable market? Yes. A double-digit appreciation isn't stability, so that's why we had to fix some things. Is this stable? I think is the question you were answering. This is more stable. So some of the big changes we're making that are causing the words recession, soft landing, it's all pushing towards more stability long term. Okay. So this, to me, over 100 people to suggest this, very good. One thing to remember from talking to your buyer clients is if they take the same amount of money that they were going to use for a down payment, let's say $100,000 for easy math, and they put it in the bank to make a certain amount of money, how much money on average would they make in a CD right now? 4%, it'll take easy math, $100,000 in, they'll make 4% on it. If they take $100,000 and buy a home to live in worth $500,000, they're still going to make 4%, but on $500,000, not $100,000. Okay? So these are things you need to start thinking through of getting it back to the question of what is the buyer most worried about? They're worried about saving money. So they're going to save money and make 4% on it, or we can get them into a house, and if they're going to continue to appreciate, they're actually going to make a lot more money on more than their money. They're going to make money on the asset. Okay. We're going to pull these type of slides up a couple times, but from showing that it's a stable market and not a collapsing market. You look at new listings alone and nothing else on here. New listings in Utah are up 11.2%. So if you looked at that statistic alone, could you make an argument that the market is collapsing? You could make an argument of that if all of a sudden there's a bunch more listings on the market. Remember, those people that remember 2009, 2010, when you were walking down the street, like, whoa, there are a lot of signs in my neighborhood. Now, all of a sudden, if there's more signs in the neighborhood, Justin's point, it could cause someone to be like, well, this doesn't feel normal. But this alone doesn't matter because one statistic on its own doesn't tell a whole story. So the thing we need to say is, what is it equating to sales? In 2009, 2010, listings were way up, but what else was way down? Sales, okay? But the way they're interacting with each other now is different. Listings are up 11.2%, but closed sales are exactly where they were a year ago. And one thing that's interesting is we break it down into Weber-Davis County is sales in Weber-Davis County are actually up from where they were a year ago. So this is the average across Utah. But here's where we're starting to see the stability happen is month supply. The government, how many months of supply do they consider a healthy market? 6. So the government says 6. I'm more in alignment with you. I like to see between 3 and 4. It's kind of like my sweet spot. So it's like we still got inventory moving. Like that's where in my opinion, that's when the game of real estate becomes really fun because there's no panic on either side. It's just like a healthy movement. If I have a buyer come in, we're going to find what they want. It's going to move. It's going to come on the market. Things are moving. Once you get to 6 months supply, then to me, that's a little long. The government likes to see 6 months supply. As you can see in Utah, we're currently sitting at 4 months supply. So still kind of, I mean, that's a stable market. That's pretty good. So nothing here freaks me out. To me, what this is saying is some of the moves the government's making has been working. My big question is how long do you hang on to some of those decisions? Because you can hang on to them too long and overcorrect. Okay, that's what I'm watching is it's what is being done is working, but is it overly working to where we could overcorrect and have to swing back the other way? The right way to do it is make changes that make the change, and then you soften the changes in time to land where we need to land. And we're kind of sitting where we need to land right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And you can see the stabilization has showed up over the last couple of years. The purple line is a 30-year average of 4.9 million transactions across the country. We're kind of bounced around with 4.1, which is stable. The question is what happens from here to here is going to move that pink line up or down a little bit, because that's the one you never know what is. All it's saying is the last 35 years average is that. It's not saying that that's where it should be. So that will be interesting to see what will happen here. I do think as interest rates come down, we'll see this pop back up and probably land pretty close to that pink line again. Okay. Market insight number 2. We're in a stalemate market, not a crisis. So we established we're moving towards stability. What do I mean now by a stalemate market? What game do you most often hear the word stalemate? Chess. What is a stalemate in chess? You kind of get to a point where it's like, oh, I want to beat you. I've invested all this time in getting to this point, but we both worked ourselves into a corner. We can't do anything. Okay. So what would make a real estate market sit in a stalemate? Okay, buyers and sellers both wanting to do something in a chess match. They both want to make a move, but they feel like they can't. So what are the things you brought up? One, what are the things that makes a buyer feel like they can't make a move? Okay, timing is one. Whether they're right or wrong in their mind, timing's off, right? Too expensive, so pricing, interest rates, I'm unsure of what's going to happen with my job, those type of things, right? So there's a little bit of a stalemate of a buyer being like, yes, I would love to own a home. Yes, I would love to buy a home this year. Yes, I would love to buy a home in the next couple of years. Yes, I want to move out of my mom's basement. Okay. On a seller side, what are some things happening for a seller's mind that's causing a stalemate? Hey, they're like, yes, I would love to sell this house, but I love my interest rate. I love my interest rate more than I love my house, right? So they're saying I could go buy, in some of their scenario, they want to downsize. We hear about people downsizing, which is an important part of our market. By them downsizing into a smaller unit with higher interest rates, they're going to downsize with a higher payment than what they're in and where they're currently at. Okay, so that has to balance somehow. The other place I've seen a stalemate right now is developers. One of the slides I'll show you here in a minute is that we're way behind on inventory still in the state of Utah. But how are builders in a stalemate right now?
They can make the money that they use.
Okay, their margins are tightening because cost of construction's up. Okay, we saw appreciation or inflation happen in such a big way that prices went way up on to build, but yet buyer hesitancy is there. So they can't just say like, oh, pass the cost on to the buyers. That doesn't work anymore. The other thing is that they're running towards the end of the project. They want the next project to do. Is land prices coming down? Land prices are owned by the wealthy right now. This is one of the biggest things that are different from like some of the last recessions. Is because of the last recessions, the people that own the ground were in a financial bind too. They needed to move the ground. So there were deals on the ground that buyers could come in and buy at a cheaper price. This last go round, one of the things the super wealthy did is they picked up as much ground as they could, and they all think there's gold this deep in their ground. So they're all like, oh, if you're not willing to pay for me, I'll sit on and take the tax advantage and I'll wait. Okay, so that could be a stalemate in our marketplace. So let's look at a couple things that support this. Mortgage rates. So this, while there's a lot of ways to articulate the stalemate, a lot of them can be linked back to what mortgages are doing right now. So we see that mortgage rates annually by average for the year, but the historical average from 72 to 23 is this blue dotted line. But I think it's interesting that they started tracking the historical average from 1990 to 23 too, to see kind of what happened there. Which historical average should we be operating off? Only time will tell, right? Because the history of the world didn't really see interest rates till this, but is that normal now? We don't know yet. Tommy, talk to us a little bit about what mortgage rates are doing right now.
Yeah, so just this last week, the BLS job report came in and it's really low, right? that scared the markets. You saw a huge drop in the stock market. They quietly revised the March and April months as well. Donald Trump didn't like that at all, so he ended up firing the lady that ran the PLS. So the big concern on that is if you're getting bad data, you make bad decisions, right? The Fed has continued to make decisions on the Fed based on the BLS jobs number. It's one of the most important data reports they look at. So the Fed is held out from dropping rates because of that, and that's caused rates to continue to be high. So, you hear Donald Trump talk about how much it costs us to just finance our debt at the current rates. It's something like $3.5 billion. So he keeps that out. And he's not happy with Jerome Powell, not happy with the Fed. The Fed's starting to tilt. You got 2 out of the 9 members that are starting to vote for earlier cuts because they're starting to see chinks in the armor, right? The economy is not as strong as they make it out to be, etc. So everything we've been saying for the last year and a half, the Fed needs to drop rates to, like you said, not continue us into this recession or make it deeper. But they're looking in the rearview mirror, etc. So the quicker they can drop rates, the quicker the economy can gain some traction. You have cheaper money to lend, people can expand, people can start to make sense of these things of like, I can let go of my 2-3% rate if I can get it, maybe get 5%. So, yeah.
Excellent. I think you brought up some really good points. One of my favorite things you said there was bad data makes bad decisions, right? And I think there's a deeper lesson in that for us is like you look at this, the health of our entire country is counting on specific data points coming to get together. The people or persons putting together the data have an initiative that they're trying to accomplish, right? So behind every report that gets put together before it goes out, they're asking the question of what impact is this going to have? Not just impact on the country, but what impact is this going to have on my position? I'm under a radar, I'm being scrutinized. Here they are in this scenario, they were over projecting data that kept us from making decisions that need to make. There could have been significantly more buyers moving in the marketplace over the last 60 days had the data been correct. So one thing we got to watch for as data comes to the table, we got to ask ourselves the question okay, is the data valid? And what would be the scenario in which the data isn't valid? And how would I change the conversation with the buyer? Okay. So I think these are all really good points. So Tommy, we saw rates come down a little bit, right?
Yep.
How much did they come down recently?
I mean, we saw about a 30-40 basis point movement on that day. We dropped.
Yep.
We continue to see that. You see back in the high 5s for W loans, FHA, VA stuff. We're seeing mid to low 6s on conventional stuff.
When's the last time that the word 5 passed your lips?
Probably been a couple months. Good for you.
Yeah, so it's been a bit. So this is good news. And then, Tommy, from your perspective, how is that a big enough move to start talking refi?
We're close. We probably need another 3 or 4 days like that to start. I think once conventional rates get back into the 5s, you're starting to see a lot of people look at financing that have gotten in at high 6s, even 7s over the last 3 years.
I know you don't have a crystal ball. What do you see that happening?
I mean, I've always been the optimist. So yeah, I see it happening. We're starting to see the spotlight there on the BOS on these things. The spotlights being put. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on it to start.
Okay, so and when that move, how often do we see a rate dip? That there's a little bit of panic and the dip goes back up a little bit after it.
Yeah, I think you could look at trends, and there's been 10, like six to 10 of those over the last couple of years, and it's very quick. It's a couple of days.
So here's the point I'm making with this is, are you familiar enough with your database to know how many buyers are in your database that should be thinking refi at some point in the next 12 months? Are you familiar enough to know where their rates are so you know when to have the phone call? You can't call them the day that it comes out and say, oh, rates are now at X, because there's some pre-work that needs to be done. By the time they come in and think about it and run the numbers, the point Tommy just made, by the time they pull the trigger, the rates might have bumped back up. Okay. So it's a big opportunity to be opening that conversation. And a lot of times, in my career, I've noticed that people talk about refi, and then when they start talking about refi, what it doesn't end up happening. We're going to redo our loan and do all this work. Maybe we should actually get the house we want. Okay? So there's an opportunity there to be thinking through that way. Bradley? Thank you. Mortgage rates. I'll send all these out. We can talk more about, so you can look deeper at them. National mortgage rates breakdown. 74% of mortgages have rates of 5% or less. So this, to me, is where a lot of those sellers are sitting. I do think a lot of the transactions that have not come to the table over the last couple of years, a lot of them have been due to sellers thinking, I would like to make a move, but I'm not rushed to make a move. I don't have to make a move, but I would like to make a move. When interest rates come down to some certain level, we're not only going to see the sellers of that time frame come to the table, we're going to see the sellers from the last 2 years time frame also say like, oh, now I'll go. Now I'm ready. So we're going to see a time where it's going to kind of trigger a pretty good flush of transactions. I think what will happen is transactions will continue to diminish for a minute. Interest rates will happen. Often we'll see a little bit of increase, and then often we'll see a flood of transactions, and then we'll see a slowdown on transactions that will stabilize, but it'll be like normal flow of transactions. Okay. The question is when that little flush of transactions happen, who's going to get them? Not the agent that wakes up to you, not the agent that wakes up that day and be like, oh, I guess the market's coming back. I guess I'm going to go to work. It's going to be the ones that are doing the work now, having the conversations, educating people so that you're the one top of mind as those transactions come to the table. Okay. The other one stat I thought was interesting is 80.1% of mortgages have rates. Oh, this is national. This is Utah. So Utah has 80% of loans at 5% or less. Okay. Number 3, top market insights and what to do about it is this. Demand is still strong, especially long term. Do you guys believe that there is still high demand in Utah? Okay, then why aren't more listings selling that? We talked about it a little bit, right? But to me, this is where we would have a problem. Is if listings were going up, days in the market were going up, and people were like, oh, Utah? No, thanks. I don't want to buy. Or if there is a little bit of risk of this next generation thinking it's no longer the American dream to own a home. Okay. We're seeing a lot of multi-generational housing now. Do you think that's by choice or by need? Mostly by need. Okay. So I've read some reports recently that, oh, we're overstating how many homes are needed because people want to live multi-generational now. People are finding a way to be happy, but it's not what they want long term. Okay. My daughter's getting married soon, and if they were moving to my basement, I would let them. But after a while, I'd be like, hey, carry on. I love you and I need my space. Okay. So I like this idea that I put on here, especially long term. It's yes, there's buyer pressure now, but until people get educated and some things come together, there's a smaller pool of buyers willing to pull the trigger right now, but they're still pushing on the outskirts of that decision of like, I still want it, but some things have to change. Do we know what needs to change? Not for buyers in general, but for your people. You should know. Okay. One of the things I've been talking about with you guys over the last couple of years is we say buyer demand, but there's kind of 2 pieces to buyer demand, right? There's buyer desire and there's buyer ability. Okay. To me, I hope you're using this in your vernacular with your people and also with your sellers, of helping them understand like there are buyers want to buy. We're putting your house on the market. Buyers will want to buy it. The question is how do we match up their desire to buy in our marketing strategy, how we're connecting with people with their ability to buy. The mortgage companies, like we have a lot of incentives going on with Tommy and what we're doing, but the mortgage companies are at some point can't make all the incentives, but can a seller assist in making some incentives to increase buyer ability. Okay, marketing, good pictures, great agent, that increases the look of the home, buyer desire, but can they also do some things to help with buyer ability? Yeah. Are you queued up on how to have that conversation in your listing appointments? Okay. U.S. single family housing units completed. So this is interesting. You can see all the way back in time, the number of units completed per year across the country, all the way back to 1973, 74, the number of transactions that happen. It's interesting that as our populations continue to grow, we haven't seen this you would assume that it was just be a consistent upswing of the number of units completed. But here's where Justin made the comment earlier, coming into like 2002, 2003, up to 2008, is where buyers were they were throwing up houses all over the place. There was more houses that buyers really needed. But there were so many people buying on speculation, thinking like, oh, this is an easy game. You buy a house at this price, you sell it for double down the road, and you just keep doing that regardless of the money you make, right? And so this caused a big problem for us here. But one of the problems it caused is two things. One is that inventory had to be picked up over time, but buyer ability decreased significantly when that inventory needed to be picked up because of mortgage fraud going on. Is all of a sudden people that should have been able to qualify couldn't qualify because the standards were so strict at that time. But at that time, what that caused is builders said, okay, not only do we have this inventory that needs to be picked up and settled out, because I'm not building. Permits went way down over the time. And what you can see though is people continue to have babies and people kept moving to the US. Population continued to increase, but we stopped making product. We stopped adding things to the marketplace. And we're still, this is going to take us a while. I'll show you specifically for Davis and Weber County here in a minute, how many years it's going to take us of building homes. This is great news for us as real estate agents, is not only do people want to buy existing product, is we know that we have to build more product here, which is going to increase the widgets that we get to go sell, okay? So if you look at this, this is obviously the state of Utah. Broken down by county, and this is 2024 to 2030 projected housing demand. So over the next 5 years, how many new housing units are needed to fulfill the demand? So you can see Davis County, we need 16,266 more units. Now, I don't know about you, but you're going to get your phone out and calculate 16,266 times 2 transaction size times an average of 2% or 2.5% or whatever it is. In addition to all the transactions that are going to happen anyway, that's a lot of commission dollars that are going to go to somebody. Okay, who are they going to go to? Cool. Can Henry Walker build 16,266 houses? All day. Okay, Weber County needs 10,477 units. I actually think this is probably a little bit off for Weber County. Weber County's got actually more attention right now just because of what's happened with some of the pricing, the people figuring out the amenities of things available out there now. People are more willing for that commute. Now, this may be a little bit low in my opinion, but it's interesting to see from a longevity of your business standpoint is saying like, okay, not only do I have all this product that already exists that is a potential sell for me, but I bought this new product that builders are going to be committed to coming on and adding more inventory over time. Okay. Annual months of inventory. We talked a little bit about this already, as we're up to four months inventory in 2025. When was the last time we were at 4 months? All the way back to 2015. It's interesting though. I've been doing this since 2001. It's interesting to I try to not only remember what the market was doing at the time, but I try to remember how I felt about the market at the time. Okay, how many of you were selling homes in 2013, 14, and 15 in here? Okay, do you remember at that time some of the feelings you had about the market at that time?
2013, 14, 15.
Yeah,
I
like
mean, honestly,
about the health of the market.
yeah, it felt like a healthy market to me because I had got started in 2007.
Okay.
So it felt like the market was starting to stabilize, things were moving.
It's way to recover.
It was, it was not like, it didn't feel like, oh man, things are sitting on the home for so long. At this point, you were like, oh my God, that's sold in 4 months.
Yeah.
It was a totally different conversation than you were having even a few years prior.
At that time, we felt like this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. Things are moving. Now, when we're sitting here, the same thing, like this is happy.
Mhm.
We're mad about this. It's funny how your perspective changes over time, right? So the thing I always try to remember is there's opportunity in every market. There is a certain number of transactions that are going to happen in every market. There's always going to be a certain number of real estate agents in every market. The question is the if I put a graph of 100% of the tactics that were working in 2013 and 2014, 80% of those tactics that worked in 2013 are still true to the market today. 20% of them are the ones that are evolving. Over here, it's not saying I need to come up with a completely new game plan or do things differently. It's still about relationships. It's still about providing value. It's still about making the connection. The data points that you're talking to your clients about and helping them navigate are different here.
I'll actually say something about 2015, 16, 17-ish. I also think that was a times at the market, you actually were able to nurture the relationships a lot better than like 2020, 2021, because everything was just so driven by the force and the speed of the market. You didn't have time to really nurture. You didn't have time to really understand what your client was looking for if you were working with buyers, because they were going to get what they got. And get what you get, you don't throw a fit, particularly through that area. And so I think that there is opportunity in every market. I think this is a really good opportunity for you to set yourself apart as a professional, that your only strategy isn't just price reduction, because if you go into it knowing, hey, we're in the long game, depending on the area, you may be 60 to 90, 420 days on market. What does that look like, and be able to speak to it versus panicking when it doesn't sell in half.
I think this is a really important point for how we're operating our businesses right now. It's when if you look at the statistic of repeat client, a client saying, I use this person, I will use them again, was a lot higher here than it is now. They're more open to looking at their options regardless of how good of a job you did for them last time. To this exact point Rusty made, is because things were moving so quick and you had a list of new clients waiting behind you to do the next transaction. We had fun and we hugged at the closing table, but I didn't continue to build the relationship of value over time. I just thought it was going to stay true because we loved each other at the closing table. I went on to the next transaction. So there's some good news and bad news to this. One is, if you find yourself in that category and you've lost touch with your database, if you have, it's time to lean back into that. The good news of this is all the people that have done, all the agents that have done transactions with people over the last several years, guess what? They have probably not done a great job of nurturing that relationship, meaning that person's up for grabs, not for the transaction, but for the relationship. Okay? I don't want you to think of people as transactions. I want you to think of, there's a value gap for some of these people. Can I go fill it? Particularly for any of you that are newer to the business in here, I don't want you to look at some of the top producing agents and be like, there's not enough room for me in here. There's room for you if you will step up and be like, I'm going to bring more value to the table than anybody ever has in this industry, and commit yourself to it. You can close the gap on that. Okay. Number 4, top market insight. Number 4 is listings are up, but not enough to fix the shortage. We talked a little bit about that now, but I'm going to give you some additional stats on this. The pink line is the 22-year average in the state of Utah, meaning about 43,000 transactions happen. Again, this is where we're down right now at 20,000. We're seeing the number of listings come back on the market. Again, I'll start getting nervous when we get like, maybe I'll start getting nervous at 5.5 months inventory, 5 months inventory. I'll start being like, interesting. I'm not nervous about that yet, but at some point, there's going to be the number of listings come on the market, buyer activity happens. Some of those things we talked about will trigger this up. The question is how quickly or how long will it take for it to start triggering up to be back to that pink line? And then at what point will it be in excess of that pink line? Because at some point, because the population in Utah has grown so significantly, for us to be like a healthy market, we'd have to be in excess of that pink line at some point. The question is how many years out is that? Okay. New listings, as we talked about, 2024 at the end of the year was 31,116. 57,914. If you're comparing just through Q2 of 2024, we had 31,000. Just through the end of Q2 in 2025, we're at 34. So more listings are coming on the market. This was actually a good sign, even though the news is using it as a bad sign. To me, what that's saying is there's enough sellers saying like, okay, and actually, let me open up that question to you. How many of you have, in your last listing appointment, was it something new that they're like, we want to list the home because something new happened, or we've been thinking about this for a while? We've been thinking about it for a while.
And opened up our mind on it. Just interest rates from the lenders.
Okay.
The builders.
Hey, I like the way you said that, is they kind of open up their mind. Like, well, I was a hard no, but now the data is like, maybe this is the new norm. Where I looked at interest rates yesterday as oh, this is ridiculous, they're going to go down, to maybe I'm adopting that now as, oh, this is going to be the new norm. Okay. But I think that the majority of, there's always going to be a handful of like, I need a job transfer, like whatever, I'm listing the house because of that. But I think you'll see more and more in your listing appointment be like, we've been thinking about this for a while, we're still not sure. Okay. That's a different listing appointment than someone calling you and saying, hey, we need to list our house, will you come talk to me about it? To, hey, we're not sure what we consider it, we're thinking about it. That's a different sales approach than we need to do this. Okay. Are you guys like thinking through that from a sales approach when you go meet with somebody. Number 5, I killed one. Good. Number 5, affordability remains the #1 barrier. So are we in agreement with this? Still affordability. We know there's buyer demand. We know the market's stabilizing. We know we've got an overall healthy market and economy. A lot of it comes down to affordability. Okay. What are the 3 moving levers of affordability?
Income.
Okay, interest rates. Of course, our mortgage partner Tommy says interest rates first. I appreciate that. I'd be concerned if you said something else first. What else? Income, home prices. Okay, so these 3 things. I heard some other things like debt. Almost anything else your buyer is going to say can be linked and thrown into one of these buckets. Okay. In fact, anytime I would really encourage you as part of your value and sales technique, anything your client says as an objection or question, I want you to start narrowing it down. Like, what are they really saying? Which one of these buckets can I link that back to? For example, a buyer saying houses are just too expensive right now. Well, that can mean a lot of things. How do you figure out which bucket they're really concerned about? Do they feel like it's too expensive because they're like, oh, well, my dad bought this house for $40,000 in 1980, and now they want $400,000 for it. Now they're worried about price. Or they're looking at it saying, like, I see the houses have sold for this price, but interest rates have gone up significantly. Now, it's in an interest rate bucket. Now, the way I'd address the concern about prices is different than the way I'd address the concern about interest rates. So one thing that one of the biggest mistakes I think agents are making right now is your clients don't just ask you to be agreeable. They do not, well, they ask you to be agreeable. They don't need you to be agreeable. They don't need you to say, you're right, oh, it's overpriced. You're right, the yellow on this wall is horrible. That's not what they want. They don't want you to be agreeable. They want you to guide them through the process. So you need to ask questions like, tell me a little bit more about that. Like, I get you, home prices haven't gone up significantly, but from your perspective, like what data points make you feel like the home prices are too high right now? Okay, so ask questions, put it back in the bucket, because then you can address it differently in here. Let's look at a couple pieces with affordability. So mortgage rates, again, this is across a lot of people. This was done towards the end of Q2. So some of the movements we've seen happen, and one of the biggest one Tommy was just talking about is this was before people saw that some of the data reported was wrong. But even then, they're starting to forecast that rates are expected to come down. You can see them here, they're predicting them tracking down over the next couple quarters into the very low 6s. I'm with you, Tommy. I'm a little optimistic, particularly with some of the news coming out now. I think I'm not scared to start saying like 5s could be a reality again at some point in the future. I do not see in my lifetime playing in the 4s, 3s, 2s, like some of the stuff we saw. Like all of a sudden, it becomes really fun to make a mortgage payment. I have a couple of my rental properties that's like 2.8%. I'm like, this is fun to write this mortgage check, right? Maybe it's not fun, but it feels better than the ones you buy at 7%, right? But this is good news. They're tracking down. Like the challenge is how do you articulate this to a potential buyer saying, I do believe interest rates are coming down without saying you should wait 2 years to see what happens. Okay, because this in conjunction with the appreciation slides that we were talking about. Okay, the other side of that is there is some element of them putting value on enjoyment. Okay, how much do you love living in grandma's basement? Okay, maybe it will cost you another $100 a month, but would you pay another $100 a month to be able to walk around your house in your underwear? I would. Okay, so that was a joke. And no one laughed. So either it wasn't funny or I'm losing everybody.
You have a bunch of rules. You definitely not want that.
All right. Now that you've all got a visual view of my underwear, let's move on. John, was that a comment or were you waving to me?
He wants to get more program. You're on the word.
You're an underwear. You're an underwear. What? Home prices by the thousands. You can see the yellow. It's always interesting to look at trend lines. I think it's great. History is the greatest teacher. Okay, we can look historically what happened, but we can't look at history of it's going to happen exactly the same way. There's going to be elements of it that are true, and then it's our job to say, okay, what could not be true in relation to the trend line. So you again, the government likes to see between 2 to 4% appreciation over time. You look at this yellow line, that's what they're projecting all the way back to 1990. Ultimately, this yellow line says okay, 1990 prices, for some reason, we're gonna use you as the baseline. And now we're gonna say, if the market appreciated by 3% per year over and over again, that's what the government would like to see home prices do. You can see historically what happens is we got out of whack as a country. That's when the government starts saying, whoa, something's wrong here. They made some corrections, overcorrected. We're coming back up. This is where I brought up the conversation of, could we potentially overcorrect again? We could, but I think we learned some lessons here of how they're reacting differently. And that's why we keep hearing this idea of a soft landing, which there's some indications that we are having some element of a soft landing. My question is you can do come down in a plane and have a soft landing, but if you don't actually land there and keep pushing down, then it becomes a train wreck. That's what I'm worried about. I see this idea of everything coming together, but if we don't make the opposite side of that to stop them, keep the momentum from going down, to stabilize. But something had to be done. Like you look at home prices here, like it's so weird as an investor, that owned a bunch of property this time. I love that. That was great for me. But on the other side of it, as also a continuing investor, it made it hard because couldn't get things to pencil. And even worse, as a dad, I was looking at it and being like, I'm worried for my kids. My kids are not going to be able to buy a house. My grandkids are not going to be able to buy a house. And that made me concerned. So it's just these weird emotions of saying I loved it to some extent that this was happening, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I understand that things have to change. Things have to stabilize. Okay. US home prices by month. We'll skip that one because we talked a lot about it. This one's interesting to look at, particularly as like we have to equate interest rates and income and home prices. What does that mean from an actually every month I've got to pay some money out of my pocket? Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Buyers is not, they don't, even though they're saying affordability in relation to the price of the house, what they're really saying is affordability of how much of my paycheck is it going to take per month for me to live in this house. Okay. So if you look at this, this is where it gets almost a little bit of a drop in your gut to look at. Is the yellow is what's happened with interest rates over time. Man, back in 1990, I'm glad I was a 10-year-old kid worried about baseball cards here and not buying a house at 10% interest rates. But you see interest rates came all the way down to roughly about 3%. They're back up, not nearly where they were, but the highest they've been in a long time. Now, how the difference was is home prices were so cheap here. And what's funny is I say cheap, but anyone in 1990 would have not thought the houses were cheap at that time. Okay. But homes are obviously very more expensive now. But how does that shake into a payment? So median home payment in the US is now $2,275, as opposed to like somewhere here they were paying $817, $845 a month. They're now required to pay $2,275. If you look at this, more than likely a median income is higher here than it was here, but is proportionately higher to what they were paid from a mortgage standpoint. That's where we're out of whack, is from the proportionate stand of it. Okay, what's that?
That's what they were getting paid too.
Yeah, that's what I meant by median income at that time versus median income here. They should have gone like this for to fill the same affordability. The problem is they've gone like this. Okay. So this has got to settle at some point, and there's a couple ways this can settle. Either interest rates come down and then their payment comes down, or we start paying more, like we see income go up, which is one of the good things about Utah, the type of jobs that are coming in Utah, we're seeing the median income go up. So without interest rates and prices changing, it can affect affordability by our median income coming up, okay? And one thing that's really important to think about is, and I've said this to you guys before, is we talk US economy, we talk about Utah economy. It's your job to have the conversation of the individual economy, okay? It might be someone in your database is like, I've been in the same job for 30 years and they're struggling. I'm not going to get a raise this year. Or it could be someone in your database is like, I've been going to school and now I understand tech at a high level. My income's going up significantly. I all of a sudden what wasn't affordable to me is affordable. Okay. In Utah, we see it's interesting. It's similar. 2,275 in Utah, it's 2,661. It's interesting if you look back. Let's go back to 2012 US 651, 2012 734. So it's from a percentage standpoint, it's roughly the same. But one thing that I think is interesting with Utah is that we've got on the map in a lot of ways, in good ways, and we're on the map in some tough ways now. It used to be that people in more expensive market would look at Utah and be like, let's go to Utah, it's more affordable there. And there's still some of that, but that argument is closing for a lot of people. Okay. Now it's, if I want to leave Northern California and come to a more affordable place, it used to be like direct flight to Utah, here we go. And now it's like Utah, I like things about Utah, the Tennessee, Kentucky, Oklahoma are cheaper, okay? They're not as cool though. They're not as cool. And this is always interesting to look at is home price appreciation over time. We talk about these averages and they look pretty on that graph, but if you look specifically tie it back to some world events, economic events, all the way back to the 50s and 60s. Let's jump forward again to where I was born. There was a recession here. Home prices appreciated 0.57%. The savings and loan crisis, which people thought the world was ending at this time. Okay, home prices only went down 2.15%. The housing bubble went up 14.51%. How they didn't start seeing something in here, I don't know. But then the Great Recession happened, and that's where we saw a big dip in prices of 12.75. I do, as an investor, I wish we could see this again in some element, but I don't think we'll ever see this again in my lifetime. And then we corrected in the pandemic and the housing boom. From your guys' perspective, what caused this big spike?
$13 trillion in printed money.
In what money?
Printed money.
Okay, this is what I've been talking about corrections. Yes, the government needed to step in and do things here, but from my perspective and some of the data now is supporting this, there was an correction of people, the government saying, people need money. We got to get it out so they can feed their families. Well, people thought they had to feed their families in new RVs and new boats and new houses. Okay. So this is what had a huge push up on prices is all of a sudden, if everyone had more money to spend, everyone wanted new houses, all of a sudden it became a bidding war on houses. And it's also interesting to me, the same agents that were complaining about multiple offer situations here and hated the market are the same agents that are spending a lot of time complaining about high inventory and stuff now. It's really interesting to me, the type of person that finds something to complain about in this market, whatever they're wishing the market would do, would find something to complain about in that market tomorrow. So one thing I would just encourage you as a group is actually interesting. I took my 12-year-old to dinner last night who's starting junior high. And for the first time, I started seeing like the teenage girl eye rolls about things. And I was just like, hey, let's talk about this for a minute. Like, I get that it's fun to kind of have some of the drama around things, but what happens if everyone in your group has drama around this, or everyone in your group is concerned about this? Somebody's got to be the beacon. Somebody's got to be the positivity, right? And I think that's true in our industry too, is our buyers and sellers are nervous enough about the market. They don't need a pessimistic person to come in and go fuel on that fire. They need somebody to come in with confidence and say, let's talk about what reality is. There's some things that we can't change, but we can change what we do moving forward. Let's get into strategy. Okay, U.S. affordability. This is where it's interesting right now is an affordability index of exactly 100 suggests a perfectly affordable market. Okay, I know it's a weird thing, but 100, just know 100 means affordable. As a country, we're finally sitting about at 100. We're 101. Anytime you get below 100 would suggest that you're an unaffordable market. Anytime you're above 100 suggests you're, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're an affordable market. So anything over 100 would say, I got enough money to pay my mortgage payment, and I still have some money left over, okay? Under 100 says 30% of my income is exactly what, 100 suggests that 30% of my income is exactly what I need to pay my mortgage payment. Under this says it takes more than 30% of my income to make a mortgage payment, okay? So as a country, we're at 100, but this is where we're getting hit a little bit in Utah is the government is making decisions based off of the country, where the country's at. And because our economy is so strong, our prices have gone up so quickly, our prices have gone up faster than our income is per this statistic, we're an unaffordable market, okay? And this is where it's a struggle because again, if you're taking this graph, it supports a lot of your buyers saying it's overpriced, it's unaffordable, because this says we are. But again, this is where you have to narrow it down to what are your long-term goals, what's your personal economy, because it could be affordable to you, depending on where you're at, how long you're going to stay in the house. Okay.
Is there anything that you see that Utah is going to do specifically to even out that?
Yes, and I'll show you a couple things here at the end. That's where I'm flying. I'm giving you the 10, but then I've got 6 points about Utah that I want to make about our economy. And they're very aware of this. Some of this is how do you create affordable housing, which is increasing density, giving some builder incentives, things like that. But the other side of that is how do we create more income opportunities for people? Because in a lot of ways, they can't, they can only increase density so much because our infrastructure can't support it. Okay, so there's things that they can do, but there's things they wish they could do, but they can't do. So one of the things is how do we attract more of the right kind of money, increased income, which prices and interest rate can stay the same, but we're still having an effect on, okay? So I'll show you a couple things in just a minute that will help with that. But this is where we could run into a problem as personal savings is very low. This is where we're kind of at this stalemate with buyers of they want to do something, they want to protect their credit, they're running out of savings. And if they don't start making more money or budgeting differently, when they run out of savings, what are their choices? Their choices are dip into the equity on my home, or if they don't have a home to dip into, change my budget, stop buying my Starbucks, which is tough for people. Go to my credit card. Problem is consumer debt, credit card debt's the highest it's ever been. And that's where we can start seeing some people's credit go wrong, and then buyer ability will decrease in that scenario. So we got to watch that closely. Number 6, buyer power is back, sort of. What do I mean by buyer power? The ability to negotiate. Some of you newer to the industry may not know that you can actually negotiate on the price of a home. Okay. And I mean down, not up. So the buyer power is potentially coming back as there's more listings on the market, more days on the market, depending on the seller motivation. You may have the ability to work a deal for your people a little bit differently than you have before, which is one of the biggest values a buyer needs in an agent, which has kind of gone away over the last few years, is we need to reestablish and help buyers remember that that is a big negotiating power, a big value proposition of having a good agent at the table. Part of that I would ask you is, what are you doing to hone your negotiation skills? Okay. Our skill isn't just like it's listed on the house for this, on the market for this, so we're going to write an offer for this. It's how do you actually structure the conversation to not only tell them we're making a low offer, but this is why, and this is why it makes sense for your people. Okay. But we've already talked about this, that home prices are up, but even though home prices continue to appreciate in Utah, because the number of listings on the market and the days in the market sit longer, even without prices coming down a lot, does increase your ability to negotiate. Okay. And this is what we watch for. That statistic is the percentage of residential listings sold. Over the last several years, the general public has thought 100% of homes listed sell. And even in the hottest of the market, you can see that this got up to like 90, little over 90%. I think it was actually a little bit higher than that, honestly, but the statistics show that it's about 90%, meaning 9 out of 10 houses, even in the hottest market, is what was selling. We're seeing now it's coming down lower into this like 75 range. Those are new listings coming on, sold listings. The reason this gaps a little bit is before, let's go back to like 2020, see how these are closer. It's because a home was listed in a month, listed 1 month and sold the same month or sold the next month. It's going to take a minute for this data to be accurate because the homes listed in August may not sell until October. So it will take a little bit longer for that statistic to show up. So this will excuse for a minute, but on an average, an annual number, we'll see this go down a little bit. But because the percentage of sold listings are coming down, it increases the opportunity for some negotiation. So it's time to hone our negotiation skills. Okay. Actually, some of you have got pretty good at negotiating your commissions. So let's take those and change the conversation to how do you now use those to serve your client. Days on the market, we've talked about that enough. Personal income growth, we talked a little bit about this. This is in Utah. You can see we're doing a little bit better where we are at 4.6, 5.6, 5.9, and now 6.7 on that's the United States. On Utah, 7, 8, 7.2, which is over the last couple of years, we've been doing better than what we had done historically. So this, again, we need this to go a little bit faster to stay up with the market, but it's getting better in Utah. Personal income percent change at an annual rate. You can see Utah is one of the darker colors, 7.2. So it's important to see how we're doing, but how are we doing in relation to the rest of the country? Number 7, local nuances matter. Let's talk about Weber Davis County real briefly. So we talked about the overall U.S. market. We talked about the Utah market, but let's talk about our market, Davis County. Through June, we were down 1.1%, or excuse me, just June, we were down 1.1%. And year to date, we're up 8.4%. So what does that tell you, how it's trending? So June was down 1.1%, but year to date, we were 8.4%, means less listings happened in June on the same trajectory. So this is the one that's interesting is new listings are up 8.4% in Davis County. Closed sales are down 5.9% in Davis County. Weber County, new listings are up 13.1%. And closed transactions are up 2.2%. So still a gap where we have more listings coming on the market than we have closed sales of it. But still, compared to the rest of the state, which this breaks it down by county. Again, you guys can get this off the MLS, but we'll also send these slides out. Is I always like to see how are we moving in comparison to the other markets. You can also look at Morgan County. I know we do some stuff in Morgan County, but it's interesting to kind of see what the averages are. You look at closed sales in Weber County is up 7%, and the state's 1.6%. Okay. Any questions on this? One of the questions I always ask when I look at this is if I look at this and say, all right, new listings, or let's say closed units are up 7% in Weber County, and then I would say, are my sales up 7%? Or if I started telling myself a story that, oh, the market's bad, no, there's no houses they're selling, I'm actually down 4%. That means the market's outperforming me by 11%. So I want you to look at this from what's happening in the market, but then translate it to your business. Like you picking up your own fair share, and you should deserve it. Number 8, rising rents. We've talked a lot about rents. This is what's interesting is we thought that they did get overpriced very quickly. We're not seeing a huge settling in this. We saw a little bit of settling, but not a lot. It's interesting if you look at Davis County rents, and I know we're not helping tenants necessarily, but it's important because a prospective buyer is going to look at their option of renting. I can either buy and pay this, or I can rent and pay this. Okay, but it's interesting to look at what happened right here. 2021 rents in Davis County went up 20.51%. Okay. Same thing you look at Weber County, 21.63%. You would think that big of a run on rents it would take a year or so before those people's rents came due, that they would negotiate them down. But we're not seeing a big dip in this. We saw a flat line here. But still an increase, then flat and a small, so basically flat again. We saw still an increase here, and then still a small increase. So it went up, but there really was no correction down. It went up, and then it's just slowed down to a new norm. So again, this does a couple things. One, looking from an investment standpoint, is making sure that you're using accurate rental projections. But then also looking at this saying, all right, well, let me, a prospective buyer that is a tenant now, they're paying a very high amount in rent, probably for something lesser than what they could get with you to go to buy something. So at that point, it may cost them an extra $200 a month. But again, what is the value? Is there another $2,400 worth of value to them per year to be in something that they own? Well, from a owning a standpoint and a lifestyle standpoint, probably, but even more importantly, that same amount of money spent building appreciation if they believe prices are going up. How many tenants are choosing to rent today because they're thinking, I'm going to wait for prices to come down? I don't know what number that is, but I think there's a good chunk of them. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I think the cost of the mortgage is so far away from rent that they're not projecting 5 years into the future. They're like the next 6 months or 9 months, my budget. It's like afford and they're getting the Starbucks. Hey, I want to build some equity.
I think that's true. Because I think let's look at it this way. So even in the event, let's say that their rent is, for easy math, let's say that their rent is $2,000, and they run the math, and because of interest rates and stuff, that the mortgage payment would be $2,600. $600 a month. That's a lot. That's a big jump. Are we asking good enough questions? Because a lot of people would shut it down there saying, I can't afford another $600 a month. But are we asking questions like this? Tell me a little bit about the retirement package at your employment. oh, well, it's nice because I have a 401k and they do it matched. I spend this amount of money, automatically taken out of my check. Well, what if that's $600 that they're taking out of their check and putting it into a 401k retirement account? That they always say, well, what was the return on your 401k last year? Like where you put in the stock of your company? Well, the company struggles. My stock actually went down a little bit, blah, 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 or whatever it is. Let's see what the appreciation of a house would have been over that same amount of time. Well, maybe they defer their payment on their automatic withdrawal out of their check for a minute and put it that same $600 towards the mortgage payment. It's no more money out of their pocket, but they're reinvesting that money differently. Are we thinking through things like that? Or are we letting where they think the story ends, that we're saying, oh, okay, you put a period there, I'm going to accept that period? Or are we going to keystroke and make that period a comma and say, let's think about other options. Let's just make sure we explore all the options on the table. Okay. Does that make sense? Sherry?
I just say back on the rentals, another perspective is in your listing presentation, that if your sellers don't realize that their two top competitors, let alone any house that might be on the market near them, it's also nowadays new construction. They're not aware of what's being built near them that could be the same payment.
Yeah.
Or rentals, because the buyer is either to stay or to the rental. If they feel like, hey, what would this house rent for? They're either gonna stay as a renter longer or go new construction compared to that existing home. And you need to realize that your competition could also be new construction or rentals.
Yep.
And that's part of the data package to share with us.
These are all great. What this links back to is one of the things that I want you to start thinking about is asking yourself this question after every conversation you have with someone. What would have to be true for this person to buy? Or what would have to be true for this person for them to want to list their home? Because they have a story of why they're not doing it. And if you ask yourself what would have to be true, like going back to that same scenario of that tenant saying, I pay $2,000 a month, the mortgage payment would be $2,600. If I ask myself the question, what would have to be true? That person would have to have another $600 a month coming into their world for them to feel comfortable. If like it's no more money out of my pocket because I'm now making $600 more, that would make sense to me. Then I can start saying, okay, well, what do I need to know about this person? Is there $600 living in this person's world that I can help them go find that they're not seeing? Then it opens up questions for me to be a problem solver other than me being like, oh yeah, you don't have money. I'll call you in 5 years. Okay.
In 5 years.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett was asked yesterday what his advice was for investors. And he said, I'm sure you're all expecting me to say the stock market, but I'm not going for it. He said, you should be buying single family residential homes. Either find a home you want to live in, a neighborhood you want to live in, buy it, stay there for 2 or 3 years, and then move and turn it into a rental, or buy a property that's a little bit distressed and maybe a little bit different neighborhood, but rent it and buy rentals, single family rentals. He said you'll do much better doing that than do with any vehicle in the stock.
Interesting.
So that was his advice.
Do you have a link to that article?
I do.
Have we sent it to me?
I've sent it out to all my clients. I'll send it.
Awesome.
I'll send it to Bradley and Bradley.
Beautiful. Stuff like that when it comes on the market, it's one thing. I mean, people put a lot of validity in what Marcus says, but it's even more if I could say like for the Warren Buffett, right? And then use that like Marcus says it and Warren says it. That's awesome. Great point. I love tactics like that.
And I heard Dave Ramsey say yesterday, which got out of my chair, talking about, hey, should I buy in today's market? There's not a call-in show, and and they were like, interest is too high, property costs are too high. He said, look, you're not going to do any better in the market than you would today. So marry the house and date the rate.
Yeah.
And then he went on to explain what that meant. And I about thought of the chair because he's not that, he never says that.
No, he's not. That almost goes against some of the stuff he said historically. That's interesting.
And he said that changed my tune because of where things are financially.
Yeah, love it. Great points. Thank you. Bradley Click. So I'm going to fly through here. Number 9, foreclosure fears are up, but this is mostly hype. If you guys started to hear the word foreclosures and some people telling agents like, oh, go get ready for a bunch of REOs and stuff. Like the percentage of actual foreclosure notices are so low. Well, the thing that happens before foreclosure is we start seeing some bankruptcies. We see people falling on a consumer debt, things like that. We're not seeing enough of that to think there's going to be a huge flood of foreclosures. Now they are up, from where they were, but not enough to be like, there's gonna be a flood of foreclosures coming on the market, particularly because the biggest difference is people have equity in their homes, okay? They have more options than they had before. I'll share this out, but it shows you kind of where some of the foreclosure activity is happening. But notice the whole state's blue. Or the whole country's blue. So not something to put a lot of energy into. We already talked about consumer debt. This is what I'm watching for this. And this is number of consumers with new foreclosure and bankruptcy. So they have high consumer debt, but they're able to manage it to some extent because of the number of consumers with foreclosures is still very low. Number 10, this is what I took away from all this data is the future is bright, particularly here in Utah. I look at this and be like, there's still a ton of opportunity to be building the business that we're having. Yes, that we could live our life thinking through the old days where people were lined up out of your office being like, sure, I'll pay $20,000 over list price. Let's go. This is going to be fun. But that just was a little splash of time in the market. It's time to get back to like, what does a real estate business of value look like, which is a database of people that you're in a relationship with that all woke up this morning. They all brushed I hope they all brushed their teeth. They all got dressed. They all have problems. They all have things they want to have happen. If those wants and desires fall into the real estate space to some level, are you the person that's in touch with them, talking about them, and giving them information to answer those questions? If you are, you're going to win, because this is there was 3 major panelists that all looked at where they thought home prices were going to go. Some of them were telling the mean, the optimists and the pessimists. Even the most pessimistic economists, forecasters out there are projecting that over the next several years, we're going to get back to a 6.7% appreciation per year. While the most optimistic said that we're going to appreciate up to 27.4% sequentially, not per year. Oh, sorry. So it's like 4.8 plus 9.8 plus 15.3. Oh, no, that doesn't work. They're pretty optimistic. Okay. So the point I'm making here.
Stephanie Fitz level optimism.
I tend to fall into like in between the pessimistic and this range in my projections. But the point I'm making here is even the most pessimistic forecasters out there are like, yeah, home prices, like Warren Buffett. And we like, this is still a great place to be putting your money long term. Are we telling that story enough? This talks about the number of agents coming in and out of business. A lot of people are saying like, oh, a bunch of agents are going to leave the business. Some of them are, but there's more coming in. So it's not a matter of you being like, I'm just going to wait out and pick up market share by proxy because agents are giving out. You're going to win by value. You're going to win by conversations. Okay. We're out of time. I'll send these out for you guys, just so you know. 6 things to be aware of Utah right now. Is Utah still among the most expensive markets? This is not a fun thing to look at because historically we've been cheap. Our median price is 9th in the U.S. right now. Okay?
But I think that's because like our economy's good, our environment.
Oh yeah, it's good because it would be bad if we were San Francisco and incredibly expensive and everyone's like, I hate it here, I want to have it. It's different because our prices are actually getting to where they should be based on who we are as an economy.
Yeah.
That's right. Number 2, job growth is really strong. Economic performance. Every economic indicator of Utah is still very, very strong. We're leading the country in a lot of things. I'll share those with you guys. And Salt Lake's still a hot spot for investors. So even though we're expensive, like investors looking to put money places are still believing in our market, which is very good. To your question earlier, that Utah is making some real advances in AI and tech infrastructure. The Draper's Convergence Hall, Inland Port Development, all that's happening, which is going to continue to push our economy forward, and not only push our economy forward, but attracting higher paying jobs and more income to the state. Clean energy investment. I like this. We've spent $3 billion as a state already invested in clean energy, potential $10 billion. So we're not only attracting more people, but we're trying to maintain a certain lifestyle and quality of life in Utah, which I think is going to continue. People are willing to pay for that. And then land policy shift. This is you guys all thought Dalton's Post probably, but like with millions of other people across the country, which I thought was fun for him. But potentially selling 2 million acres of federal land back for more developments. They're trying to figure out how to open up more ground for development. Depending on where you fall on a political stance, that could be bad, good or bad, but it's out there. And what o'clock? And sorry I rushed you that last thing. I'll send that. If you want to talk to you about any of those things, let me know. Was this valuable today? Yeah. What I encourage you to do to wrap up is get the slides, pull up the 10 points, and then ask yourself, do I agree or disagree? Why? And then say, if I was to have a conversation with my people, how would I do it? How would I articulate this belief in the market, both to a buyer and a seller? And I think that will just instigate some thought for you. And what you'll find is, even if you don't end up calling people in your database, when someone calls you tomorrow with a question, you're going to come back to some of your answers and thoughts with that because you're doing the exercise, you're doing the work. Okay. I believe in you guys. Make it happen.
Sign the sign sheet. That's
Thank
how you'll
you.
get the slides.
Thanks. Everybody learned something here today that they can go share with clients.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to hear one, I don't know what to say to clients. This whole rest of this week, damn it, you learned a lot of good information, go share it with people. Your clients are getting information somewhere. If it is not from you, your business is at risk. So that's it. Thanks, guys.
Well, and they're getting the right information. too.
No.
So that's what you want to go talk to them.
I'll take more time with you.
I'll take the
Yeah.